So we don't have a guest of honor today, but that's okay. We've got a lot of people on here that can definitely provide input. Or if any of you guys do want to be on and jump in as guest of honor, just have a question, by all means, we can definitely address those or take a peek at your system or whatever it might be that you are struggling with in here. But we are, right into the new year. And as the new year rolls around, that's when I find that a lot of everyone has the most motivation. They start looking at, this is my year, right? So, and Beverly, from your experience, that motivation is there. What would you say is the best way to keep that motivation going? Because I know, right now everyone's kind of on that peak. They're going, they're hustling. They want to succeed and do better than they did the year prior. And in some cases, not all, that motivation kind of starts to it plateaus and then it just kind of starts to drop again. What would you say is the best way to keep those that motivation going, for the entire year, not just the first beginning months of it?
Question. It really goes back to, I'm going to give the Olympian story. When an Olympic medalist is going and training for the Olympics, what keeps them focused, what keeps them getting up in the middle of the night and going and practicing and then doing their day and then going back to practice day after day after day, basically giving up their life, right? They don't have friends, they don't have the family experiences, they're giving up for a reason. And we're so goal focused and goal oriented that it's something that's much easier sitting down and writing down your goals. However, if that Olympian goes to the Olympics and their goal was to get the gold medal, there's nothing else to achieve or obtain after that gold medal because you've beat your own record and you've beat everyone's record and you're the best. So what do they do differently that keeps them going without having the crash after they reach that gold? And it's really comes down to the why. It's your reason for doing what you do has to be much bigger than all the goals that are set. And I hear all the time, it's for my family or it's for my kids or it's something that's tangible, where your why is a much bigger scope that is not ever completely attainable, but it's something that you wake up and you strive for every single day, by the lives that you touch, by the people that you meet, by the communications that you have, by the core values and the mission statement that you have in your life that keeps you on track. So when we peel back a lot of those layers of, okay, we have the goals, but why are those your goals? Why is that important to your life and how you are going to be straight up affecting people in your life? Because everything that we do is about the experience of what we're bringing to the table. And we can get into real estate and sell homes. We can get into car sales and sell cars. We can get into being a doctor and serve people through healing them with being able to diagnose. But at the end of the day, it has to be a much bigger picture. So really peeling back the layers and looking at why did you get into real estate in the first place? What was the reason? Why are you staying in real estate? What is real estate doing for your lifestyle? What is real estate doing for you as a person? And how is it developing you to become a better version of yourself? And when we get really clear about what does get us out of bed in the morning, it changes the game, because this is a tough industry and we get beat up. Especially in the shifts of the market. I mean, last year was it was a wicked year in the world of real estate. And we had a lot of agents bail. I was just talking to an agent yesterday. I coached him a few years ago, and he called and he's like, "Bev," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to you in years." And He said he had his best last quarter ever of his career because of things that he implemented back to the basics.
Yeah.
Back 3-4 years ago. And he said, I really thought about getting out. It got really hard. And when things get really hard, that's when your why comes into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that door closing, veering me in a different direction because I've exhausted all of my everything into what I'm doing? Or am I just getting frustrated because my determination isn't enough? My why isn't big
Mm-hmm.
enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good.
So
Balance.
it's more depth than
Yeah.
call your leads, call your leads.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all
Anybody
around.
can call their leads, but
Yeah.
if you don't have the why behind it, it's not going to make you get over discomfort. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
make you get over discouragement. It's not going to make you get over and trudge through because you just feel defeated. I mean, let's
Mm-hmm.
face it, we all have things that come up in our life that defeat us, sometimes daily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all have a past. We all have things that we've attracted into our life that may not probably should be there right now at this time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when those things creep up in our life, how do you handle it and what are you doing with it? Or and, I always think about this when you have that one client that makes you really want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
If you let that one client get to you, who wins? And when you look at it from a perspective of if we give up because something gets hard, or we give up because we don't want to, or we give up because it's way more fun to sit on the couch and Netflix binge than to do
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Yeah.
We've all been caught in that. We know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's having that awareness of asking yourself, why? Why do I want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
The big picture. What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Absolutely. I was going to add to that. Now I just totally slipped my brain. Totally slipped my brain.
Well, I'll
But
keep
it's
talking. Feel free to interrupt me.
yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it's like it's very easy to commit to New Year's and set new goals, right? It's very
Mm-hmm.
easy to say, all right, I am going to get Agent Locator, or I am going to master my Agent Locator.
Mm-hmm.
We can wake up first thing in the morning and have grand intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we open up the platform, and then we see all the names, and we see all the tags and all the filters, and we become discouraged very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And rewinding to an hour prior when we had the excitement of putting our systems in place, of organizing our systems, of I'm going to make these phone calls today. And then fast forward 2 hours later, we did nothing and we got deer in the headlights and we closed it up and we went about our day.
Yeah. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? We all have these. That's a lot of New Year's resolution where you're seeing all the little memes everywhere about how the gym is full in January, and slowly, the attendance of the gym, it starts to become emptier and emptier and emptier with those people. And I always say, for me personally, it's always the day before. The day before, I'm creating this idea and this thought of what I'm going to accomplish the next day, but then the next day rolls around and it's like, I don't really feel it, right? It's almost like you have to do those things in the now as you're excited about it, as you're motivated about it, instead of waiting and thinking, well, I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to do this later. It's doing it while you're at that peak of motivation to actually accomplish it.
And creating new habits. It's so easy to fall back into our negative self-talk
Mm-hmm.
because that's just what is natural.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, what is natural is for us to beat ourselves up because we didn't do something, or beat ourselves up because we may not have done it the right way, or beat ourselves up because we let something divert us. And that negative self-talk, we spend more time in our own head listening to our own voice than we do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that voice telling you? What do you truly feel that you deserve? And can you be aware of that self-talk? And can you start to change that self-talk and say, why am I telling myself that I can't do this? Why am I telling myself all my leads suck? Why am I telling myself that this is too hard? And look at the blunt reality, because usually that negative self-talk is the story that we're telling ourselves based on a past experience, instead of just
Mhm.
looking at the actual reality that is in front of us.
Mhm.
And that goes back to Crystal. Every lead hangs up on me.
Mhm.
Nobody answers the phone. Every
Mhm.
lead is a bad phone number.
Mhm.
It's that
Yep.
over exaggeration of really verbalizing how we feel. And if that's what we're verbalizing, what are we getting?
Yeah.
And if we're not creating those new habits and we're not changing what we're focusing on, we're going to continue to get the same results.
Yeah.
And yes, everybody can say, I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 5 pounds, however much weight you want to lose. But what is the process of enjoying changing past patterns,
Mhm.
past
Mhm.
habits?
Yeah.
Because that day, to your point, Crystal, you get up and you don't want to go to the gym. Rewind and ask yourself why you wanted to go to the gym in the first place.
Mhm.
And ask yourself if you're repeating another pattern.
Yeah. It's um one of like a book I'd read in the past is kind of like, if we don't change our situations, the future's not going to change, right? Because a lot of us will use our situations or things that are preventing us from excelling or doing certain things as crutches to
Mhm.
as to why we're not doing this. Well, I can't do this because of this, or I'll do this when this. What if this never ever actually changes?
Yep.
Right? So we have to be the one that changes our situations, and in order to make the ultimate change happen, because for whatever reason, a lot of us just think that in time that'll change. I'm in time this is going to change. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't change?
Yep.
To initiate that change so that you can move forward with the ultimate goals that you do have, right? So, and this falls into real estate as well. If there's something that we all have a life outside of our job, that can put limitations on some of us as to what we're able to fully accomplish in the day. But it's finding something to, okay, so if this is my limitation and it's preventing me from doing that, let me find a solution to help make it less of a limitation. Because if I don't do that, then my situation is never going to change. I'm always going to be stuck in the same circle, and hoping that that situation one day will change.
But it has to
We
change.
do have, yeah, exactly.
I see people are looking for
Um,
scripts. They want to master the phone.
yeah, yeah. So Brian
All right.
is asking, the first calls to the lead, mastering the call scripts. Um, and so we all have, and different individuals that we do have on here as well, that we talk to. We all introduce ourselves to our leads differently, right? So, but they
I
all
just
follow generally
dropped
a similar script.
I just dropped
The
my
Google Doc.
questions,
Mm-hmm.
yes, not scripts, into the
Yeah.
chat. Make a copy.
Okay.
Everyone
Mm-hmm.
just go there, make a copy, and keep it as your own. I have really realized in my long journey of conversations, he who asks the questions controls the conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
I am not, I don't know, I'm not a proponent of scripts. And
Mm-hmm.
if you really play with the telemarketers that call you,
Yeah.
you can tell when they're scripted.
Yeah.
And I was at my mom's for a couple of months, and it was comical whenever she had to call Xfinity for her cable or for her internet. And she got so frustrated. She's like, why aren't they listening to me? And I said, because they have scripts in front of them, Mom, and they have to read. So they're not hearing what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying. She goes, it's so frustrating. I'm like, I know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you don't want to be. You don't want to be a script reader. You
Mm-hmm.
want to be a question asker, because when you ask the questions, It's going to promote them to have a response that's going to bring about another question. So if you really think about what is the most important thing for you to know about any lead in your database, when do they plan on buying? That's it, right? I mean, that's really the biggest question that we need answers to, because if we knew when everyone was planning on buying ish, we'd be able to call the right people at all the right times.
Mm-hmm.
But it's 2020, it's 2024. I have to remember that. Technology, AI is really changing the game of people picking up their phones. They don't know if they're talking to a real person or if they're talking to artificial intelligence. They don't know who they're texting. And what I've really realized is it's a whole webinar jam. There's the automated webinars, right? It's like you go and
Mm-hmm.
sign up for something. It's like, oh, sign up for a webinar. Pick that. It's starting in 0 minutes, and they're
Yeah.
guaranteed this is a live webinar, and then you jump on it and they're like, oh, hey Joe, nice to see you. Oh, where are y'all from? From here, from I'm like, this is such BS, right? It's all
Mm-hmm.
recorded content. So nobody understands today that you are a real person.
Yeah.
The more that you can help become real and show them that you are real, the more they are going to trust, because
Mm-hmm.
nobody trusts anything anymore. Thank you, technology.
Yeah.
So the reality, when we are attempting our communications, I think more than ever, personal videos are the absolute key to showing off your personality and for them to really know you.
Mm-hmm.
Most of you have leads in your database. And if you look at the leads that are actively engaged with all of your emails, when they're getting the property alerts, when you're sending out drip campaigns, if they are opening those emails, they know your name. Let's take your name and put a personality to it.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's going to make it real. People want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. If they think that you are a machine, they will never know, like, and trust you. So what can you be doing to be attracting people to your personality and the way that you do business? That is
Mm-hmm.
absolute key. And
Mm-hmm.
those questions that are in that doc can be questions that you are able to utilize through text campaigns and through email campaigns. And now they just ask, I knew this was going to come up, Crystal. Are you allowed to send
Mm-hmm.
videos through AgentLocator? Back to you,
You
Crystal.
can. You can, but it has to be a link, right? So if any of you guys have ever received an email from me, I have what you call a GIF. And what that is a moving picture. So anyone that uses like bomb, things like that, the email that's going out, it looks like it's an actual video playing, but it's not. It's just a moving picture with a play button on it. So when you click on it, it actually redirects them to like, for BombBomb, it's a BombBomb platform. But you could do the same thing easily just with like YouTube or Vimeo. You can have the video on your Facebook, for like, you know, it could be anywhere that that video is hosted. It's just the video is not specifically hosted on AgentLocator. So you would just, there's a few steps in your guys' CRM system. If you go to the email section, and up in the very top right-hand corner, you're going to notice a little question mark. If you click on that question mark, it'll drop down with several different tutorials. One of them being how to add video to your emails. It'll kind of walk you through the steps of creating a GIF and linking that GIF and so on with that.
Yeah. And, you know, there's nothing saying that you can't use your personal cell phone number. The whole premise behind using the dialer with an AgentLocator is it tracks it for you. So I'm going to suggest going back to basics and maybe just do 5 a day. Just do 5 personal video text messages a day with your platform open, making the notes that you sent them a video from your personal phone.
Yeah.
So that, you know, maybe even use it as a tag, right? Tag them, video sent. And you can tag the
Mm-hmm.
videos, video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4, and have a key to that so that you know who you have sent videos to from your personal phone so you can
Mm-hmm.
reference that back to your agent locator.
Yeah.
I'm telling you folks, it technology is making us go back to the basics and do things a lot differently than what we have been doing the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
because it is much, much more difficult to communicate and get people to answer their phones and respond,
Yeah.
because you're just white noise at this point.
Yeah.
And being out in the community and attracting is truly going to be your best form of lead capture,
Mm-hmm.
and using Agent Locator as that CRM to keep everything organized. Agent Locator is truly your storefront as your inventory, to be able to house your entire inventory in that store and keep it completely organized. You
Mm-hmm.
don't just have to be getting leads from Facebook or Google. You can go out into your community, start looking at different events that are going on in your community, start looking at sponsoring different events. What is it that you could speak about for hours? Look for speaking engagements in your community and start being of value in your community so that people
Mm-hmm.
know who you are. Get
Mm-hmm.
your face out there. I can't say enough about that. I really can't. I see someone in here, Crystal asked, they had transferred and imported leads into their agent locator from a previous CRM. This is, I love that newness of that transformation, because you can really take advantage of mass emailing
Mm-hmm.
to get them to opt into, hey, we just upgraded our home
Mm-hmm.
search database and we want to offer it to you for free. Link here to see the
Mm-hmm.
newest homes that are on the market.
Yeah.
You're completely, I'm just going to say 100. You have 100 leads that you're sending this out to. Well, instead of sitting there trying to call the 100 people to determine who's going to answer the phone and where they are in the process, send out the 100 emails and see who opts in and clicks in and
Mm-hmm.
opens that email. Those are
Yeah.
your serious people.
Yeah.
So you're organically going to be building a future communication list with people that are going to engage out of the gate. And then
Yeah.
just develop a campaign. Say, hey, I sent you an email last week, or I sent you an email 3 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Utilize your chat GPT and ask your chat GPT for 5 emails that are going to engage an imported database, and
Mm-hmm.
be very specific in that request. It's going to give you the emails to send to set up your drip campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can create these. So one thing you can do is, if you guys have, and it depends on, you've already imported, you could of course do this at import as well, is set them up. So if they've already been imported, you can add them, create them as a lead gen user, and it sends them the activation email, which is basically they validate their email and then it brings them into the website. Boom, their account's all ready to go. But you could also create an email template that you just shoot out right after. Like, hey, I just upgraded my system. I just sent you an account activation email. So they know what it is. So it's not like something that just comes out of the blue. It's then there's an email that's coming right from you right afterwards, kind of letting them know exactly what that email is for. And again, that's something you could also do on import, because you can add all the imports as lead gen users. They'll all get that email. And I believe you can customize that email that goes out. And if not, again, you just have it so that they're assigned to a campaign, which is that one email that's just saying, hey, I did this for you. So it's all done in one shot. And then, like Beverly says, see who all validates their email, creates an account, and you can also follow up with those who didn't go look
And
at any
that's your
property.
focus,
And you'll
right?
see.
The people that opened
Yeah.
it, take extra time with those people that did open it, because they responded. And that's really, anytime
Mm-hmm.
that we open up that dashboard, our key objective should be getting someone to raise their hand. And
Mm-hmm.
raising their hand can look a bunch of different ways, right? They can tell you to go F
Mm-hmm.
off. That's a hand raised. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They can tell you, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not moving until next year, or I'm not moving for 3 years, or I'm moving in three
Mm-hmm.
months, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just want them to raise their hand. So really be thinking about that engagement. What question can we ask that's going to prompt a response? And I always go back to it. This story just never gets old. When you walk into a store and the sales clerk says, "Is there anything I can help you with today?" I'm going to say 95% of the population say, "No, no, 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 leave me alone." Right? Like, "No, thank you. I'm just in here browsing." But that 5% is going to say, "Hey, can you point me to da 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 da?" So when you are engaging and those people are raising their hand, be prepared with that follow-up question, because if that sales clerk were to say to that person, "No, thank you, I'm just looking," well, what exactly are you looking for? What brought you in today? But if you were to make a purchase, always back it up with, "Well, if what would it be for? Business, casual, or special occasion?" And moving the same way, if you were thinking about making a move, you're dropping those defensive walls, because you're not talking anything absolute and making somebody uncomfortable, because they're already uncomfortable because they don't want to be sold to. So what is hypothetically? That's one of my favorite words. Hypothetically, if everything was perfect in your life and you were to choose to make a move, when would you do it? Well, there's nothing wrong with hypothetically. Well, I can just say what I want to say, right? Because this is hypothetically.
Yeah.
It's very weird how the brain works when you start using those words when you're having conversations with people.
Yeah. If people think about it differently.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Brian's
Brian's
just circling back.
asking,
Yeah.
what's that? You look at, yeah.
Yeah. He was just circling
Are they
back.
in order? Yes, Brian. Great observation. They are absolutely in order with when they answer the phone, because I learned early in the game that I created my own objections by spewing at the mouth my name, my website name, my brokerage name, my team name. Bleh. They don't care. They're not even listening.
Yeah.
I just like to go out of the gate. You want to know where your lead came from. "Hey, this is Beverly. I saw that you were online and you filled out a home evaluation. You were interested in finding out the value of a particular home. Hey, I saw you were online looking at homes in duh. Hey, I saw that you were on Facebook and you were interested in this one property." However, you know that lead was generated, bring attention to that, just so that they know why you're calling, why their phone's ringing. Because I promise you, when they see that number they don't know, their defenses are up and they're like, I'm already hanging up on you in my mind whenever I'm answering the phone. So we have seconds to make that engagement to determine if they're going to hang up the phone or not. So, "Hey, this is Beverly. Just saw you were online looking at da da da. Just wondering where you're at in the process." Just open it up. And they're like, "Oh," so generally the majority of the time you're going to get, "Oh, I'm just looking," because nobody else knows, they don't know what to say. Right. And instead of saying, "Oh, great, when you find something, let me know," we want to know about their situation. And what's the most important thing to know? Do they own or do they rent? Right? That tells a story. If you own, how long have you been in a home? If you rent, are you in a month to month or are you in a lease term? That gives you a date. If you know that they own and you know how long they've owned, that's telling a story, right? Finding out if they're comfortable with the payment that they currently have, or if they have a bigger budget. That's telling a story. If you can get out of them how much their mortgage payment is right now, and you see that they're looking at homes that are way above that budget, you're going to be wanting to know how much equity they got, because for them to like get that payment where it needs to be, they better have a shit ton of equity, right?
Yeah.
So start peeling back those layers, because at this point, I don't care if they want 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 10 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 50 acres, or 2 acres. It don't matter. None of that matters. What matters is the meat and what would be the reason that they would be making that move. And it tells a story if it is for business, if it is personal. Are they upsizing? Are they downsizing? Or like what is the reason? If you, and going back again, if you were to make that move, what's the reason? And then I always like talking that hypothetically, if you had that magic wand and you knew everything would go perfectly. When would you like to make that move happen? And then going into investigative role, right? It's like, okay, I am a problem solver. And when we think about real estate, the only thing that makes a transaction happen is their expectation is met with opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're having these conversations with them, start looking for the opportunity to meet their expectations. And that is what's going to make the sale. Because I straight up, they're afraid. I mean, everyone is afraid to take that leap unless they have
Mm-hmm.
to.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a lot of
Because
work.
there's so many thoughts. Well, there's just so many thoughts. Like, well, what if my
Yeah.
home doesn't sell? Well, what if I
Yeah.
find something and then I can't get my home sold? So I don't want to start looking and fall in love with something if I can't get my home sold. Well, what if I get a contract and there's something
Yeah.
wrong with my home and the home inspection fails? What if? There's so many what
So
ifs.
many. Yeah. Yep. It's a big deal.
Your job is to massage those what ifs and take that away from them
Mm-hmm.
and say, well, if I could make that happen with ease, would it be something that you might move forward on?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say yes, you've got yourself an opportunity to create, right? Meeting their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So once we know what their expectations are, we either know that they're smoking crack and it ain't ever going to happen
Mm-hmm.
because they've got that champagne taste on the beer budget. Okay, see you later. I'm tagging you. Bye, Felicia, because you're way off your rocker. Or you know what? They may not be too far off on
Mm-hmm.
their expectations. They just don't know the market right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the fun of the conversations, is just finding out where people are right now
Mm-hmm.
and where they want to go.
Yeah.
And how do you fit in? Where do you fit in? When do you fit in? It's not about making that sale at that initial phone call. And honestly, like you were asking Crystal, what can we do to stay motivated? Well, I can promise you 6 months ago, if you were on one of our webinars and we were having these conversations about building your pipeline, about just 5 calls a day, one
Mm-hmm.
conversation a day, I promise there would be people in your pipeline right now that are thinking about making a move that you would need to be following up with.
Mm-hmm.
So the best time to start calling your leads is yesterday, honestly,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
because he who has the conversation is the one that is positioning to win. Because these leads are in multiple dashboards, but they have not had multiple conversations.
No.
The agents that are consistent are the ones that are positioning themselves. And when I say consistent, they're the ones that are building that trust through time and just flat out
Mm-hmm.
asking people, what can I do for you? And be honest, there's so many people that have real estate licenses. What can I do differently that would help you the most?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody asks that because everybody's afraid to have the answer. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, they usually don't have the answer because they don't even know what they're looking for in a real estate agent. But I can tell you, if they had a really bad experience, they'll tell you what they're not looking for.
Yeah. And I think with what all that you're saying, one of the biggest components as well is you're saying ask the questions, make sure you're taking the time to actually listen. Listening to a lot of calls, like, because we do that as part of our training, we check in and we kind of listen to see how things are going. What I find is questions are asked, but we're so anxious or uncomfortable that we don't even really let the person answer the question. We just start asking another question right again. All right. So it's making sure that you're actually having thorough conversations with these people. It's an actual conversation. And again, like your questions go in order, but depending on how they answer a question is going to change what question you ask next, right? So if everything was perfect, you get in a call and it goes in this order, but it's often every lead you contact is going to be different. And that's why you have to listen, because if you start repeating yourself, going based just off those questions, you would be very much repeating yourself, or, just kind of going over something they've already established with you. But definitely listening to them and making sure that it is about their needs, right? So I've listened to calls as well where I could clearly tell that it was, or my assumptions was, they were steering the person away from a certain type of property because the agent themselves wouldn't benefit from it, right? So it's hard to do. Obviously, we want the best. We have to always think, and it's hard because you guys are commission sales, of course. But it's, always looking at the best interest of your leads and clients, because you never know, that might not actually work out. Their goals, but educating them, not just saying, well, you don't want to do this, or this is better. This is better. This is why. But really the underlying reason wasn't really, there was any better reason other than, and this was something where the lead was actually explaining why they were going this route, and it was still trying to push them into going a different route. And that's the only thing I could think of was this type of property. There was often no commission, like a pre-construction. There can or cannot be, in some cases, any kind of compensation for a realtor with that, and unless you have them in their agreement and they agree to pay you. So just be mindful of that as well, because people will catch on when you're trying to guide them in different directions and start to feel or sense that you're not acting in their best interest. You're only looking at your own. Because if they hear or talk to somebody else that starts educating on that, you might lose that person altogether.
And always be looking at the lifetime value of a lead, because the longer you stay in business, the bigger your snowball becomes, because every person knows somebody. And when you're looking at the lifetime value of a lead, when you're treating them with kindness, you're treating them with respect, with honesty, with truth, and a home inspection falls through on something that you have under contract with them, and it's truly not in their best interest to move forward with that home, because they don't have the cash reserves to put into the money pit to make it be what they truly want. It's not your job to say walk away. It's your job to ask the questions to help them to self-realize. Do you really want to be putting money into a roof in 2 years? Do you really want to be putting money into da-da-da? When we talked in the very beginning and you explained to me what was important to you, I'm here to remind you of those things. Ultimately, it's your decision to move forward. However, I just don't want you moving forward emotionally, because we've got to look at this as a business decision. And that's truly what your job is to help your clients from becoming emotional with their decisions and keeping it real. And the paycheck is going to take care of itself, which goes back to what we opened this conversation up with, is your why. What are your core values and how you want to treat your clients? Yeah, but listening is such a huge piece. And yes, Crystal, I've listened to calls too where the questions asked, and then the person may say something, but then they ask a question that they've already went over, and you're like, duh, like that was already said, like you really don't listen. Yeah.
Really listen. So I encourage you guys, if you guys, and again, another benefit of using that dialer is listen to your calls, listen back to them, right? So if you're like listening to yourself, we're the biggest critiques of ourselves, let's put it that way, right? So if we're listening to ourselves, we're going back and we're like, oh man, I was just really rushing through that call. I really didn't take the time to listen. You're more mentally aware of it the next time you're making your calls, right? So and if we're new at this, calling people isn't always everyone's favorite thing. Some of us have been doing this for years and are completely comfortable with it. Some of us, this is new territory, or have just never really been fully comfortable with it. It's just listening back, and the more you kind of listen, and it allows you to develop and change and adjust your approaches to ultimately achieve better results in what you're doing.
Yeah, Monday morning quarterback yourself. That is the Absolute. And I think, guys, it's been a few weeks since we've been on calls because I don't think you were on my last call when we
No.
did it. But I
Yeah.
think it was you whenever I said that I started teaching yoga at the
Mm-hmm.
studio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's new to me, right? And it reminds me of when I first started making phone calls and just that fear of, gosh, what if I say the wrong thing? What if they hang up on me? What if, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was the same way getting up on the mat and cueing certain body positions.
Yeah.
So it's video and come back and Monday morning quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like watching myself. I don't like listening to myself, but I have to like tune that out and do the flow, listening to myself
Mm-hmm.
to learn. Oh, I could have said this because now that I'm moving to my cue, I should have said this.
Yeah.
But if I don't do that, I can't get better. And I love how me calling leads really did grow into calling leads live. I remember the first time I was on a webinar and I had to dial leads live. It was like starting at square one all over again. I was like, oh my God, I got all these people on a webinar and all these people are listening to what I have to say. What if I say the wrong thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I didn't die. But
But
it
you could
challenged
tell.
me to
Yeah.
be better. It challenged me to get better. It challenged me to build best practices,
Mm-hmm.
multiple platforms.
Yeah.
And just because I wanted more. Brian, I
Yeah.
think you're asking for me
Well,
to re-say are
what
you,
question?
yeah, I think it was one of the questions one of the first questions I asked. So what is your current situation? Do you own or do you rent? If you own, well, if they say they own, how long have you been in your home? If they're renting, are you in a month to month or in a
After
lease?
that.
Because if they're in a month to month, they can move at any time. They have no commitment that's binding
Mm-hmm.
them from making a move.
Yeah.
If they're in the lease term, it's giving you the timetable. A little
You know
after
that,
that.
wasn't it? Well, the good thing is this is recorded, Brian. So
Yes.
you go back, you can fast forward to like, hey, this is when she was talking this and listen back. Cause yeah, it's
I
it's
think because
really
I
just
think what I
infographic.
went into after that is getting an idea of how much their monthly payment is so that we can kind of gauge what they're looking at and kind of solve that little puzzle, right? Because, oh, how long have you
Mm-hmm.
been in your home? So, when you're thinking about making that move forward, are you trying to keep your mortgage payment the same or do you have a little bit of flexibility there?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say have a little bit of flexibility, well, what is your current mortgage payment? And they're like 3,000 a month. And you look at the price that they're looking at, if it's in alignment, you know that you've got a quality lead there, that you're not too far.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if they're paying like $1,000 and they're looking at like multi-million-dollar homes, you're like, where's your money coming from, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell us the story.
They won the lottery overnight.
And these are the things that people can't lie about because you're catching them and that they just don't think about. It's not like, do you have an
Yeah.
agent? Right.
Yeah.
And I don't even ask people if they're committed or if they have an agent. I just ask them, how long have you been looking? Have you been
Mm-hmm.
in any homes? It's a yes or a no, right? Yeah, I've been in some homes. Oh, how did you get in? What homes did you go see?
Yeah.
Because we assume they have an A when they say yes, I've been in other homes, and we're like, oh, they have an agent. There's things called open houses. There are
Mm-hmm.
things called spec homes with new construction.
Mm-hmm.
There are things called open doors and vacant properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We never know how they get into homes, right?
Yeah.
And they may even say, "Oh, I just called the agent on the sign."
Yeah.
They have no commitment. So once you know how long they have been looking, if they have been in any homes, you've never asked them a direct question if they have an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And then asking them, do you know that this is so important, guys? Because I was always uncomfortable. Have you been pre-approved? Have you talked to a lender? It's so direct and it's so anti-personal because you're
Mm-hmm.
basically saying, can you afford to buy a house? You might as well just ask them that if you're going to ask them if they're
Mm-hmm.
pre-approved. So
Yeah.
I like that I'll call it the backdoor approach, because, it's like you go, like when you go to a friend's house, you don't go in their front door. You go in the garage door,
Mhm.
you go in the back door, right? And you don't knock, you just walk in. So that's
Mhm.
how I like to ask my questions. So I saw that you were looking at this home on 123 Main Street, and it's like $1 million. Do you have any idea what the payment would be on that?
Mhm.
Ah, they're either gonna go, yep. And then I said, well, what do you think the payment would be? Right. And then this is what's gonna peel back the layers of, do you have equity? Do you know how much equity you have in your home to be able to put down to get that payment down? Or no, I have no
Mhm.
idea what the payment would be on that house. And say, you know what? There are so many different ways to buy a house. That is not my area of expertise. Are you interested in knowing what a payment would be on that home? There's your open door. I am
Mhm.
going to suggest, not necessary. I'm just, helping you possibly, maybe, hypothetically, if prepare, just so you know. Doesn't cost you
Mhm.
anything. Just a little bit of your time, just like we're talking right here, is a little bit of your time. Then that way you're going to know. So when you're looking online and looking at homes, you're going to have an idea of what sales prices are going to be within your monthly budget. I mean, yeah, so I don't like to ask them if they have an agent, and I don't like to ask them if
Mhm.
they've been pre-approved. I go a little bit deeper in my questions,
Mhm.
because then they
It's
can't
a
lie.
roundabout. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
They may not
roundabout
tell
ways of
you.
asking them. Yeah.
I've never in all of my, I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of phone calls, I've never had anybody say, no, I'm not telling you how much I pay a month. Everybody tells me.
Yeah.
Because as you're having conversations, as you're asking questions, just think about it yourself, right? I sit here and start asking you questions about why you got into real estate, about your favorite client, about a war story, about what you love about real estate. You're just naturally going to start trusting me more and more with every question. And
Mhm.
why? Because of what Crystal was talking about, because I am listening. Everybody
Mhm.
that has two legs that walks this earth wants to be heard.
Mhm.
And I'm going to use some very poor English right here. Ain't nobody got time to listen to nobody no more. And it's
Mhm.
very sad. But to our benefit, it's very easy
Mhm.
to create that space, because
Yeah.
nobody's doing it. Nobody cares about nobody but themselves right now, because everyone is in protection mode, because we're sold to
Mhm.
constantly.
Mhm.
Our electronics are going off constantly. We're
Mhm.
constantly looking for that stimulation. I mean, I can't even wait in line without looking at my phone. I thought I was going to die New Year's Eve. Um, my battery died, and it was at my mom and dad's house, and so I was using my dad's car. So they put a new battery in my car. So I took my dad's car back to the house, switched out cars, jumped in my friend's car, and we went to dinner. I got in the car. We were about 2 miles down the road. I'm like, I forgot my phone. In the transferring of cars, I
Yeah.
forgot my phone on New Year's Eve. He's like, do we need to turn back? And I'm like, no, no, it's all right. It'll be good for me to not have my phone. I wanted to legit feel what it felt like to not have my phone, and it was very weird.
Yeah.
Because you know what do you do, right? You're sitting there having conversation. Your friend goes to the bathroom.
You go
Do you
on your
pick up
phone?
your phone? Do you pick up your phone? Absolutely, because you
Absolutely.
look like a retard sitting there not doing anything. That's really what it felt like, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't look at people because that's rude.
Yeah.
It's a commercial on TV. Who really watches commercials during the football game?
Mhm.
Uh, right? It's like I didn't know what to do with myself,
Mhm.
and it's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
So forget your phone when you go somewhere, and just teach yourself some habits.
Yeah. I did that. Yeah, it is very, or I made a mental, I had my phone on me, but I made sure I didn't touch it. It was very like I had to like really mentally think about not touching my phone, like because it just becomes habit. Like you just grab it. It's just like an accessory to your body that you always need to have. So actually, I did go out for dinner last night, and I made a point, and even though the other person went to the bathroom, I still didn't touch my phone. I was like, I am not pulling my phone out. I am just going to sit here for whatever.
You know what I'm
I
talking
can't
about,
even
though. It's
remember. Yeah.
weird, right?
It is
What did
weird.
we
It's
do
like you're
before
like you're used to
phones?
always doing something.
I
Yeah.
guess we were just a bunch of
Yeah.
weird people walking the earth before phones. I don't know.
Well, the world was a lot slower pace. I think people are a little bit more calm back then. Now everything is just like everything has to happen so instantly that it does put more pressure on us on a day-to-day basis, because if we're not as super responsive, then we think that opportunity could be lost. Or if you think back, my dad used to be a real estate agent like way back in the day, and they had pagers, right?
Yep.
They didn't have cell phones. And, if you went somebody, people would call your house. They couldn't get a hold of you unless you were physically at a specific location, right? So there was no in between. There was the waiting game. You had to wait. You had forced patience on people. Right now, if we took everyone's, if all the self-service dropped, people would just be like, I don't know what to do with myself.
I know. I know. And I love what
it's,
Brian said. And Brian, I'm definitely, yes, you are 110% right. It was all on my feeling.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Right. And yes, I talk to, because I always sit at the bar, like the bars where you get the action at any restaurant, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so the people that were to the right of me,
Mm-hmm.
they were an older couple. I was talking to them. We were talking about the football team. The people to the left of me, we were talking about where they were watching the game, the last game. We were talking about the football players. Another couple came in and realized we were from very close to each other in an area in Virginia. And we had a whole conversation about the area and her dad and my grandma. And yes, we
Yeah.
gravitate to what is comfortable, and the phone is our comfort because we know who's
Mm-hmm.
in our phone. We know our emails. We know our text messages. That's the comfort, right? God
Mm-hmm.
forbid we talk to somebody that is beside us at a bar or
Yeah.
at
Right.
a, right? And I love practicing that. I do.
Good.
I have a
Well,
script for how to talk to people when you don't have
and the
your.
thing is, if you don't have your phone, and think about your area of business, if you don't have your phone and you're sitting by yourself, and where normally you just be on your phone, that now is giving you the opportunity to talk to people and perhaps slip in there what you do with your profession, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're sitting there on your phone, that would have potentially never come up, right? So, and then it can also get you out of your comfort zones of actually just initiating conversations with random people, right? So there's that as well.
Yeah. And, I really do feel, I was talking to my coach about this, about how COVID created social anxiety, that social
Mm-hmm.
anxiety is more of a thing now than it ever was. And so much so that I actually created a video of what to do when you walk into the yoga studio. Because
Yeah.
so many people are so afraid to walk into a yoga studio and walk
Mm-hmm.
into a gym because you're like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? Where do I put my shoes? Do I bring my mat? Do they have a mat? Where do I park?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, parking is
Mm-hmm.
a big thing for me. It's like you go and maybe something's in a big building and you got to look for the suite,
Yeah.
right? You're like driving around the building, you can't find the suite, or you got to park in a parking garage and walk.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh God, well, where do I where do I park in the parking garage? The first floor, second floor, the third floor. Where's it? Where's that? Right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
all those things will really prevent people from taking action.
Yeah.
And when
Yep.
you know your ideal client, when you know what keeps them awake at night, it really makes our job so much
Mm-hmm.
easier.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, vulnerability always sells. And
Yep.
just like this conversation, every single person has related to what it feels like to not have your phone. And
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, right? We got to have scripts. We should have scripts on how to talk to somebody when you don't have our phone.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerability, right? Just look at the person
Mm-hmm.
beside you and go, oh my God, I forgot my phone at home. Have you ever forgot your phone? And that, I promise you, is an absolute surefire conversation.
Yep.
Because commodity,
That's
right? Like if you
yep.
can find something in common with somebody, you strike up that conversation.
Yep.
So it's just always looking for that, I don't know, that opportunity in
Oh yeah.
everything.
There's always opportunity in everything. And some people are really great at it. They don't even care. They're just like, what? Anyone I talk to is going to know I'm a realtor. Doesn't matter if I'm standing in the grocery line, if I'm waiting at the dental office or whatever it is. I'm going to spark up a conversation with this person. Oh, could start about something random, but then somehow leads into I'm a realtor. Right?
Yeah.
So, and
Well,
almost
because
always
that's a
people,
safe, right? That's a safe
no,
place. So what do you do?
yeah, it's exactly right. The thing, or just whatever. Somehow it comes across. Oh, I'm one of my clients. Oh, what do you do? Right. And so
Yep.
it's always it's the way. And no, Brian, I am not a realtor. Um, Before we go, we do have one question here from Peppy. She she like to know when you ask about a pre-approval, they're not comfortable answering, but they change the subject to something else, right? So not everyone likes talking about money, right? So if they are switching, again, we're kind of more talking about, what their mortgage payments are to get to that. Or maybe you do go the direct rate, Peppy, and ask about that pre-approval. But if somebody's kind of resistant on talking finances or monthly payments, how do you work around that?
So I completely understand how you feel and what you're saying. I don't want to know anything about you personally, but let me ask you. You do have a monthly budget in mind that you are comfortable with, is that correct? And they're going to say yes. My job is to ensure that we don't oversell. I want to make sure that what you're looking at online is something that's going to meet your expectations, because the last thing that I would want to have happen is you fall in love with a home and find out that's not in that budget. You're not being negative, you're not putting them down,
Mm-hmm.
you're giving sheer facts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also showing that you are investing in their best interest. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if they don't understand that, see you later. I don't want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, because they absolutely probably have something to hide, and it just move on next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't like to take that approach. And I remember early in my conversion days when I had a girl that it was one of my first top people that I converted. And I asked her, I said, out of everybody that was calling you, what made you pick me as your agent? And she says, you didn't ask me if I had an agent. You didn't ask me if I was pre-approved. And I'm like, oh, but I did.
I did. You just didn't catch that.
Exactly. She never even caught on to it, right? She
Yeah.
never caught
Yeah.
on to it the way I asked the questions, because
Mm-hmm.
it was very safe. And when you
Mm-hmm.
offer people that safety on the other side, that's what builds that trust.
Yeah. And I think it's just genuine conversation is really what it has to be. It's standing out against the competition. Everyone out there is asking all the exact same questions. Do it differently and make yourself stand apart from all the other people that are probably trying to call this lead because they're signed up in multiple different websites within a span of time.
Yeah. And so, always be curious. Always be curious,
Mm-hmm.
and practice asking questions to anybody, but before you open your mouth in any conversation, just ask, is there a question that I could ask here?
Mm-hmm.
And it really does. I went out to it was a Christmas luncheon, and I asked the one gentleman that was sitting at our table, I said, so what made you make the decision to take this route in your life? And he started crying. And I looked at my girlfriend and I said, I don't think he knew that I love to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can affect people by the questions that you ask, because it's so empowering, because people aren't encouraged to talk anymore.
No,
And they're certainly not heard when they do talk.
no.
So if you can hold that space for somebody, guy, that's a game changer, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is the absolute best advice that I could give you when you're having conversations with these leads. And just have that compassion and have that tenacity to keep up with trying to talk to them, because the more that you practice this, the more that it's going to become an addiction to you to want to save these people. And just think about your worst competition in the market and think about every single one of your leads utilizing your competition. And that will help you pick up the phone because you got to save them.
Absolutely.
And yes, Brian, COVID absolutely revealed what was always there, 100%. It gave a name to people that, I mean, even myself, like I'm an introvert. Like I love sitting in my home and going nowhere. But yeah, COVID did bring about a lot of what was already there. But yeah, our lives are different. Our communications are different. Technology is different. And we really do have to stay ahead of it. So my wisdom of the day is be real and show your leads that you are real so that they can start learning to trust you. That's the key. And whatever it takes to do that.
Yep.
And practice your why, right? Be aware of what is your why, what gets you out of bed in the morning.
You bet. Awesome.
Yippee!
Session today.
Yes. So anybody that's here, we're going to be back in 2 weeks.
Yep.
If you want me in your dashboard, I would love to make some phone calls.
Yes, absolutely.
So reach out to Crystal and get on that list.
Yeah, I have to update the booking link. So, but reach out to me if you do, and I'll add you guys in, and we may do another pop-up session as well. So I just have to check calendars and Beverly's calendars and what have you, because we did miss one last month. So
yes.
But thanks everyone for jumping in. Thanks, Beverly.
Give us feedback. I mean, if we're doing a pop-up, it can be on anything. What do you guys want? What do you guys want?
Yeah, exactly. What do you want from these? And we'll focus that around that.
Bye.
Awesome.
Happy New Year,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Happy New Year. Bye.